IFAS Extension Florida Sea Grant Program. We have a number of great upcoming webinars, which are traditionally hosted on the third Tuesday of the month at 12 noon. So in May, we're going to actually be having a panel of speakers talking about Martin County land acquisition and watershed restoration. Then in June, Carly Batts with Martin County is going to be talking about landscape water conservation study that was put into practice and the good successes that they've had from that project. In July, Nathaniel Wynn from Florida Oceanographic Society is going to be talking about 25 years of citizen science data and how that's helped to determine water quality trends and environmental stressors in the Indian River Lagoon. And then in August 19th, Randall Parkinson with FIU is going to be talking about sea level rise submergence simulations and its impacts as projected for 2050. So we've got a lot of great webinars coming up, and Vincent and I will put the registration links in the chat for you. We also just completed our first field trip, which was a great experience. We wanted to say thank you to the South Florida Water Management District. We took a tour of the C44 reservoir and stormwater treatment area, and it was a great experience. So be on the lookout for our next field trip, which will be coming in next month or two. And in the meantime, I want to promote a project that Vincent and I are collaborating on in the Indian River Lagoon. It's an Eyes on Seagrass participatory science project. This is essentially a census of seagrasses across the entire Indian River Lagoon. Anyone can participate, no matter who you are or where you are. All you need to do is take a photo and answer some quick questions. So the link for more information is that bit.ly there, EOS for Eyes on Seagrass Blitz, and we'll also put that in the chat for you all. The more that people participate, the more data we collect, the better inventory we have. So hopefully you all can be convinced to get out on the water sometime in May and provide some data for us. As always, the webinars are recorded and posted on the YouTube page. This is a great resource where you can find all of the webinars from this year as well as previous years. And just a reminder that we will be holding questions to the end. So put all of your questions in the chat and we will answer them in the order in which they come in. And with that, I am excited to introduce our presenters for today. We have a trifecta of NICs today who are going to be presenting for you, talking about Oyster Aquaculture, a dual approach to building clean water and local economies. So the first NIC, Nicholas Borden, is the co-founder of Reef Arches based in West Palm Beach, Florida. He provides coastal restoration solutions for shoreline, seawalls, and docks across the state. They've been growing rapidly and secured national distribution and heavily rely and focus on oyster restoration. The company holds several patents on its technology, and Nick is responsible for all strategic partnerships and business development for the company. The next Nick may or may not be joining us today because she is on the water. Nicolette Mariano is the owner of Treasure Coast Shellfish, LLC, the only woman-owned and operated sustainable oyster aquaculture farm on the east coast of Florida, as well as the only oyster farm in Indian River County. As a child, Nicolette grew up in Stewart and observed the drastic decline of the Indian River Lagoon. So after over a decade of being in the aquaculture industry, Nicolette decided that not only did she want to continue to help educate and restore the estuary, but she wanted to do it in a way to incorporate sustainable local seafood as well. The goal of Treasure Coast Shellfish LLC is to bring back a dying industry on the east coast of Florida while being at the forefront of sustainable aquaculture practices. And last but certainly not least, Nicholas Muzia is the principal engineer and design build project manager for Sea and Shoreline. He has a diverse experience as a multidisciplinary engineer and is currently working on environmental restoration projects that provide natural or nature-based solutions that can be combined with typical gray infrastructure. Nicholas has a passion for finding natural solutions for engineering problems. He is a partner with the U.S. Army Corps Network for Engineering with Nature. He's an FAU alum with a degree in ocean engineering and he has spent time with offshore engineering, Department of Defense projects, diving systems, construction management, civil engineering, stormwater management. Nick got involved in water quality and restoration after witnessing the damaging effects of Lake O, also in his hometown of Stewart. We have a couple of Stewart folks here. He enjoys fishing, diving, and long walks in the woods. So with that, I want to thank both Nicks for joining us today, for sharing this super cool project with the group, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Why is it saying pause? 1 second.
We're not seeing anything, which is odd because we
Yeah,
just tried this.
not sure why it says your screen share is paused, but I don't see.
See if there's something.
I can't say I've ever paused.
Oops.
Oh,
No.
wait, there we go. Now it just,
Yep, now I can see it.
guess I need to click a button. So let's see, did it?
Yeah, it looks good.
We're still seeing, you just need to put it in presenter view and then.
Nick, if you want to kick it off.
Sure. All right, now I see it.
Perfect. Looks good.
Oh, right. So, hi everybody. So like Lisa mentioned, I'm Nick with Reef Arches, and we're going to be kicking off with Oyster Aquaculture. So we've created with sea and shoreline Treasure Coast Shellfish a dual approach to building clean water and local economies. Next slide. So what is a reef arch? So where we fit into this is we're basically offer nature-based solutions and more surface area for oysters to grow on. So you can see in the pictures below, we have a honeycomb structure, and it's designed to be as sustainable as possible for environmental conservation, oyster restoration, and scalability. So these are a couple of installations we've done already. And more excitingly, on the bottom right-hand corner, you can see how the oysters are covering our inserts as well as the arch itself. So we're very much dedicated to nature-based solutions across Florida and how we can help grow more oysters. Next slide.
And then I'm Nick Muzia, so our role in the project is generally, helping to set up this process with utilizing oyster aquaculture for environmental restoration and working with Reef Arches and Nicolette to scale this type of project. And we'll go into some details a little later as to what exactly we're talking about. And then our third partner in this is, Nicolette Mariano with Treasure Coast Shellfish. So I think today she's actually harvesting oysters. She said she may chime in and then could do a screen share on the boat. But we're going to give everybody a little introduction to what exactly oyster aquaculture is and the critical work that she's doing to improve water quality and provide tasty treats for the table. And if anyone's interested in oysters in more detail, I've got a QR code. You'll see a few of them pop up through the slides. Feel free to actually take out your phone, do a screenshot, or take a picture, and you can get some extra resources that way. So we're going to start this off with a video. So we're going to play about 8.5 minutes of it, and then we'll jump off. But this is going to provide everyone an overview and some excellent film work to what exactly an oyster farm looks like in the Indian River Lagoon.
The ocean is an incredible place. Let's keep it that way. Join us as we hunt for sustainable seafood. Our seafood choices matter for the future of ocean health. Hey, it's Sarah Curry from Soraya Films. In this episode, I'm meeting up with Nicolette Mariano in Sebastian, Florida, to learn about her oyster farm, Treasure Coast Shellfish. Oysters are amazing and delicious creatures. They're one of the best proteins you can eat if you care about the environment. Almost all of the world's wild oyster beds have collapsed. But here on the east coast of Florida, in what was historically one of the most biologically diverse estuaries in North America, the Indian River Lagoon is home to an oyster farm. This farm is improving the quality of the water in the area and provides a local, sustainable protein that people love to eat. The subtidal area where the oyster farm is located receives pulses of salt water twice a day as the tide changes. And Nicolette Mariano, a young aquaculture biologist, is doing what few people have done here.
Right now, we're coming up to a cage that has our staged gold doubloons. And so we'll grab it with a gaff first to help pull us to the boat and not slip. And then we'll grab the hook and use the davit to pull it up, so it's a lot easier on our backs.
There are 5 species of oyster that are commonly grown in North America, and multiple ways to grow these different oysters. Nicolette is growing her delicious Atlantic or East Coast oysters in floating cages. Each line has 14 cages on it, and each cage holds 4 bags of oysters. And even though she grows one species, she divides them up into 2 different size classes in the bags.
So our Sebastian silvers are 2.5 to 2 3/4 inches long. I say it's a play on our petite, because you don't really hear of a petite oyster in the southern market. And then the gold doubloons are 3 to 3.5 inches. That's our larger oyster. On average, our salinity is year-round roughly about 28 parts per thousand. We've been having a higher salinity. The gold doubloons are briny all the way through, and the silvers are briny up front with a green and a little bit of a sweeter finish.
Water conditions, such as how salty the water is or salinity, impact the taste of the oysters. This is why it's fun to try oysters from different water bodies.
You can hear by the sound, or if it's a oyster that's leaking, it sounds a little more hollow, or if it's completely dead, whether there's still meat in there or it's just an empty shell, it sounds hollow, kind of like jingly. Right now, we're counting out and bagging up our Sebastian silvers, which is a smaller petite oyster, into 100-count bags. A good market oyster has a nice deep cup and a really good meat to shell ratio. So trying to have that meat close to the edge of the shell. So if you're buying a 3-inch oyster, you're not just gonna have 1 or 2 inches of meat. Hopefully you'll have a full 3 inches-ish of meat. And that is all with working the oysters, chipping that growth edge. So yeah, as you can see, the growth lips on these ones, or we also call it the feather edge. When you're through the tumbler, or like sometimes we'll shake the bag, the growth edge gets chipped, so you're creating this nice deep cup oyster versus like this one still has a cup on it, but it's got a backward bend and it's thinner. Right. Because you want that nice deep cup to sit nicely on the plate to hold the liquid inside the oyster. 2, 3, 4. It is hard work, and working out in Mother Nature, I mean, it's been cold, it's been hot, it's been rainy. I've always wanted to build a crew that, you know, we're tight-knit, just like a family. Being able to mesh well with the crew and each other is important.
We've started to harvest the same seed that we got when I first started working here. And that has been really, really cool for me to see. I think anyone in agriculture, aquaculture, will tell you that, to be able to raise something from essentially almost when it was born or just a few days old to being market sized and sold off. Yeah, it's a really rewarding experience.
I love my coworkers. They're great. And I just love being on the water and being able to be out here every day. Every time I come out here, it's just like an immediate mood booster. And I just love being out here, being in the sun, being with everybody, just being able to do what we do.
We are the farmer, and we also are a certified processor. We do retail and wholesale. I mean, everyone's our target consumer, but definitely trying to debunk that misconception that southern oysters you can only eat during the winter months. We're not back in the ice box days. We have very good refrigerations in our processing facilities, and we are very highly regulated.
Myths about the safety of southern oysters are pervasive and can harm the livelihoods of farmers like Nicolette. Though there may be risk in eating raw oysters, there's risk in eating any food product that's been mishandled. From near constant temperature monitoring to site visits by inspectors, oysters are so strictly regulated that these risks are drastically reduced. Here in Florida, the group in charge of implementing and enforcing regulations to meet federal shellfish guidelines is the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. I spoke to Jesse Field from FDACS to learn more about these regulations.
It is the most regulated food item in this country other than milk. Once it's at the processor, before it leaves that processor, it should be under 50 degrees and it should be stored at 45 degrees or below for its entire life until consumption. Starting in May through September, all product must be in the cooler by 11 a.m. and it must be down to under 55 degrees before 1 p.m. or within 2 hours of when it was put in the cooler.
We are very fortunate with our location that our processing facility is only about a 10-minute drive to the dock. And then from the dock out to the farm is only another 10, 15 minutes.
An inspection happens 4 times a year, and it involves a site walkthrough and a paperwork review. We want to basically see your records of what has happened in your facility since the last time we were here. And that's going to cover sort of the temperatures of your coolers. It's going to cover all of your sanitation of your facility. It's going to cover all of your receiving and sales records. In this case, all of your temperatures are consistently.
Nick, we've lost audio, so
It's absolutely acceptable to do it more often than required.
is this a good place to stop? Because it's starting to get really jumpy.
Yeah, this was actually where we were going to stop as well. So perfect time, right at 8.5 minutes. But what we wanted to share that, so a filmmaker, Sarah Curry, does pieces on sustainable seafood. And all of us care about the aquatic environment, trying to find ways to source sustainable food. The QR code down there, I urge everybody, take a screenshot of that and check it out, and that'll go to So now oysters and the environment for water quality. What's important? Why does it matter? I think everyone knows it's been generally accepted that oysters can filter up to 50 gallons of water per day. So what do oysters filter from the water? Well, they filter algae and microorganisms. But what's that algae and microorganisms made out of? Essentially nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and more. Nutrient cycling is a process where nutrients move from a molecular level all the way to heavier objects in heavier forms, such as larger predatory. In this example, from dissolved organic nutrients to the algae, to the oysters, and essentially to the humans. We can, through that mechanism of nutrient cycling, remove nutrients from the water body. And that's kind of the basis of why oysters are great for local water quality. Now, a little bit about nutrient removal. Everybody here, I imagine, is very familiar with nutrient impairment. So, but nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus can either be removed or sequestered into something more solid. Example, oyster shells and aquatic plants. There are three main mechanisms for removing nutrients from water. One of those is the nitrogen cycle. And if anyone's got a fish tank, they're probably pretty familiar with this, but this works only for nitrogen and is the easiest of the three processes. Essentially, nitrogen dissolved in the water or through fish waste or organic material decomposition is converted into nitrite nitrate by microorganisms and eventually atmospheric nitrogen, which is 80% of what we're breathing right now. So nitrogen, just with the addition of plants and microbes, can flash off and be removed from a water body. Now, another mechanism is particulate settling. So this is a physical process and where particles settle down to the bottom. This is primarily the means for removal of phosphorus. Now, when I say removal, it's really not removal, it's sequestering it and settling it. Now, the issue with this is it can be resuspended, which is some of the issues that we're facing in the lagoon. And then the final mechanism, which is why oyster aquaculture is good, is assimilation, which works with all nutrients where you're, again, this is the nutrient cycling where you're converting it from a molecular level into something heavier, like oyster shells and aquatic plants. And that's what oysters do. And oyster aquaculture is a way that we as consumers can support nutrient removal in our local water bodies. So I think we can all agree nutrients are good, but too much in the water has created issues within the Indian River Lagoon. So this is just an example. Nicolette's farm is located near Sebastian Inlet, and in the central Indian River Lagoon is impaired for excess nitrogen and phosphorus. So what can we do to get rid of the nutrients? It is about lunchtime, so we can eat aquaculture oysters and help these farms along the way. So oyster nutrient assimilation versus traditional aquaculture. So aquaculture, I think in general, gets a bad rep for water quality due to its impacts in, say, generic finfish farming in the open water, where they're introducing fish food. Some of that is lost to the environment, and then the additional fish waste creates a net nutrient input to the water. But oyster aquaculture and in general shellfish aquaculture is completely different. There's no food put in to support those animals. They pull the food and the nutrients from the surrounding environment, convert it to a heavier form, the oysters and the shells or clams. And this is why shellfish aquaculture is just, in my opinion, this gold star shining example of how we can actually utilize, an economic farming practice for the benefit of water quality and allow all of us as consumers to be able to drive beneficial impacts. And if you want to learn more about sustainable seafood, I got this link down here is the same one, this QR code to Surya Films website. And they've got a lot of really cool things that are going on in Florida and the Southeast with sustainable aquaculture. Now, oyster nutrient assimilation. So to put it in some numbers, so NOAA has an aquaculture nutrient removal calculator specifically for shellfish. So we ran through Treasure Coast Shellfish number for their yearly harvest and equated to 155 pounds of nitrogen based on their calculator, which has a lot of scientific sources that we could probably go into in a whole another hour session. But in general, putting it into perspective, that's equivalent to 32 50-pound bags of fertilizer or 159,000 square feet of fertilized lawns. And also to put it in additional perspective, the calculated reductions for a new project coming on in Martin County is a Manatee Pocket Southwest Prong water quality retrofit has a calculated 334 pounds of nitrogen removed per year, which is still great. But just the yearly harvest from a local oyster aquaculture site is about half of that. So think of what we could do as consumers if we started looking more into utilizing sustainable seafood like this and doubled her crop. We could actually double the nutrient removal. which is exciting to me because I like to eat oysters and support water quality at the same time. So now I'm going to pass it to Nick, who's going to talk about how Reef Arch is fitted into an innovative, in essence, Nick helped make this happen, create an innovative solution in which we're utilizing oyster aquaculture for restoration as well. So go ahead, Nick.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so like Nick said, we want to support happy hours with with extra steps. So what we do is we actually created these inserts as a way to grow oysters naturally. So the entire thesis of this aquaculture restoration method is to say, well, if you can get more oysters out on the water, let's say you could put them on seawalls or on dock pilings, then you could create more water quality enhancements. Great. So what we do here with Reef Arches is you could see our 1,200-pound unit for like shoreline stabilization, and we place our inserts there on the left-hand side into the arch. And then on the right-hand side, you could see all the oysters actually accreting onto the material. So there's multiple ways. And of course, when you build a living shoreline, like on the bottom right-hand corner, you could see how that actually builds into the whole ecology. Next slide. Yeah, I see in the chat there. Yes, of course, everyone wants to support happy hours. And so as you can see here with these pictures, Nicolette took some fantastic shots of species that are hiding within the inserts. So what we did is we take these inserts, about the size of a hockey puck, and we put them inside the floating cages. That allows the spat to accrue right onto the inserts themselves. And you could see on the journey from before 1 month and 4 months later that it's completely covered in it. So we all know the importance of oysters, but how can we actually take an action and implement it in our homes? Encourage restaurants to do this. How can we get marinas involved? The more oysters we put into the water, the better water quality we have for our local ecology. And of course, now we can grow and help our aquaculture farmers to grow more oysters. So this is the method that we wanted to target. Next slide. Perfect. So now what we can see here on the left-hand side are those floating cages that Nicolette had. So we put our inserts in, that now this would create effectively a new revenue stream for the aquaculture industry, right? It's not just providing oysters for food, it could also provide oysters for restoration at scale. And on this side, in the middle portion, you could see how we take the technology and we could put the inserts right onto a seawall. That's pretty great. So now everybody could cover their seawalls full of oysters. And these could be, oysters grown by Nicolette or otherwise. And on the far right-hand corner, we actually decided, we thought, hey, there's a lot of dock pilings that are right at the oyster tidal line. It would probably make sense to wrap it with our material to get more oysters to grow. And those inserts that you saw in the pictures actually pop right into the honeycomb structure. Kind of like honey in a beehive, same principle. So this is how we're able to encourage and support the aquaculture space by really giving them more real estate for them to plant their oysters. So that's pretty exciting. Next slide. And then here's a video of just the use cases of reef arches in general, right? Because oysters like to grow in tidal zones, and you usually see them near mangroves as well, draped upon the roots as well. So because of that, and the variety of spaces where oysters can grow, we wanted to showcase how the arch itself could support and protect these areas. So let's give it a second to load, and we could show you some pretty fun renderings. Okay. Then
when I click it, it goes to a YouTube link.
Oh, it opens separately? No worries.
Yeah.
That's fine. So as you can see there's some avenues where the mangroves could actually grow through the structure and stabilize the shoreline, which is pretty fun. And if you want to, you could actually look at, if you see me directly, you could see behind me our entire shoreline that has mangroves actually growing through it and stabilizing it. But next slide. So this was actually a very exciting spot. This was over in Palm Bay, Florida. So in the Indian River Lagoon, and it is right at the MRC's Ted Moorhead Lagoon House. On the left-hand side, they gave us this shoreline that was crushed and damaged from hurricanes. And they said, hey, we need you to put in reef arches to repair it. 6 months later, you can see we actually built back the sand that naturally accreted. That was not fill. That was naturally accreted behind. What it also did is that it created seagrass habitat, and it also created more surface area for oysters to grow in. So that is huge, especially if you're now using the calculator that Nick had showed for NOAA. We could empirically show the removal of nitrogen and phosphorus. So by providing more real estate to the oysters, that's great. And providing more, going back to aquaculture farmers, giving them more inserts for them to grow their oysters allows them more revenue, and we could support our local farmers. So that's what we really wanted to focus on. And that is, I believe that's all the slides for me regarding reef arches. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at nick@reefarches. And excuse me, one more slide. And you could see here for shoreline protection where you would actually place the reef arches, which is right at that breakwater line that Nick has his cursor on. So that allows to slow down the wave energy, that allows the sediment and the water to move through it. There are no other products on the market that allows water to move through the unit. So we have 120 square feet of surface area, and we really wanted to focus on the habitat. More surface area means more oysters. More oysters means we could support our farmers better. So, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll add a little more. So, what Nick is saying, that's important. A critical part of any like shoreline, like a natural shoreline protection is, utilizing these wave breaks or offshore oyster reefs, like how they were naturally created or naturally evolved to, reduce the wave energy. And then there's many solutions, just like reef arches, that can be purchased and placed that'll provide some immediate protection for the shoreline, reduce wave energy. They're generally habitat focused, and they'll support accretion of sediment. So one of the specific details how we linked oyster aquaculture to this is those inserts that Nick had mentioned and showed. We put those out into the oyster aquaculture bags, those cages that we were seeing getting pulled in the video. And a unique thing about Nicolette's oyster farm is normal oysters that will spawn on their own. A lot of aquaculture facilities and aquaculture operations in the United States for oysters will use triploid, which are kind of genetically modified oysters that don't reproduce, and they still filter the water, but they don't provide additional oysters. So there are some oyster aquaculture operations that use these diploid oysters so that they'll spawn on the farm and then actually increase the number of, the amount of spat available within a given water body. So that's something that Nicolette does that she's very passionate about. And with these inserts being placed on the farm, they're treated just like they would be a harvest. So there's no change to the operations on the farm. And then those inserts will collect that spat that's released from the oysters to create an insert that's, in essence, a remote set is a term that's sometimes used in oyster restoration, where they'll set spat on shell or spat on some structure in a lab. We're actually doing it in the environment. And at that time, it's going to collect all the beneficial microbe communities associated with that oyster reef. In essence, we can create a complete reef and provide an additional revenue stream for oyster aquaculture, because they're already doing a great job of providing us with tasty treats and oyster aquaculture operation. So if you saw in the video, FDAX regulates it highly. And this is a little chart or an FDAX chart that it lays out their cooling schedule. But in essence, I'm sure most people have heard the old adage, don't eat oysters or only eat oysters in months with an R. But that is based off of traditional cooling methods before refrigeration. Now that they can put them on ice and refrigerate them immediately, that's no longer the case. So we can eat Indian River Lagoon oysters all year round. So, and feel free to shoot that QR code for some information, get yourself a pack of
Nick, your audio froze up just now.
Did it? Yeah, I've been getting, like I said, unstable internet. Can everyone hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
We need the
See,
oysters
maybe
to
we'll answer
filter out the
questions.
nitrogen from the bandwidth. That's what we need.
Is there still more of the presentation or?
Nope, that was it. I was going to
Okay.
see if my screen glitched over anything, feel free to add something to the comments or questions.
Okay, we do have some questions in the chat, and then we'll ask people to keep adding questions. And I know Nick has started to answer some of them. So Susan asked, what material are the reef arches made of? And Nick sort of responded already, saying that we use a variety of materials for oysters specifically. The mix is mostly sand and CSA cement, so super sustainable. The next question is whether or not you've done any work in Martin or St. Lucie counties with the reef arches.
Oh, with Reef Arches. Okay. No, we haven't done any in Martin County, but we're definitely open to it. If there's any opportunities, yeah, feel free to email. I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay, great. And the next question is, can you talk a little bit about the permitting process for putting the reef arches on shoreline locations, seawalls, dock pilings, etc.?
Sure. So let's say, for example, Broward County. There's already exemptions in place where tiles and inserts like ours go for mitigation. So that's already approved, and those are already policies that are in place. So that's great. Anytime you put anything on the wall, it's very easy because we're not, you're not necessarily drilling into the wall. Permitting for dock pilings, I believe that goes through FTEP, but again, we're not touching the bottom, we're just wrapping it or applying the inserts directly onto the column. When it comes to applications, let's say the living shoreline that's behind me, that was permitted through U.S. Army Corps, and also we complied with a DEP permit exemption. So in this case, because this was owned by the city of Palm Bay, we were able to say, hey, DEP, this is 10 feet from shore. It's within the exemption limit. We applied. We got it. So, but anytime there's other locations, let's say like water management districts, the permits could be filed there. We use a third-party service for that. We can recommend all sorts of companies, but we just supply the product. So yeah, great question.
Okay, are there any other questions for our
Yeah,
presenters today?
hopefully the oysters could filter out all the lag from the from the Zoom. That's what I was saying earlier. So
Yeah, so Damon asks, assuming permits are in hand, how much does it cost to have reef arches created and installed per square foot of seafloor covered?
yeah, great question. So using that, we actually measure on linear feet. So typical solutions, let's say you have riprap. Riprap costs about $300 per linear foot to install, and it takes around 4 weeks. We are 10 times cheaper than that. Our installers that we work with put it at $30 a linear foot, right? So riprap's $300, we're at $30. Well, that's great. And then each arch, we sell them just individually, and we just do it on a per per unit basis. So our arches are 4 feet wide, and those are the 1,200 pounds. Some of the pictures that Nick had showed, we have 50-pound units, and those are $300 each. So it allows, volunteer groups to put them in for the low profile oyster restoration permit. So yeah, great question.
Great. Xander, and I'll open this up to both of you, wants to know what is the favorite part of what you do?
Nick, you want to start?
Nick looks like he might be frozen.
Well, might be frozen. Fair enough. All right. Well, I'll hop in. So the favorite part is able to identify shorelines and just be able to fix it. I mean, there's a ton of. Oh, I think you're back.
There, I'm gonna go with stop share and see if that speeds things up here. Any better? Test.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So no, I mean it's using trying to fix water quality issues here and trying to use innovative approaches such as this and helping to communicate, make people aware that there are things that everybody can do and every little bit matters. So just as something as simple as learning about local oyster aquaculture in the Indian River Lagoon and making conscious decisions to support those types of operations. We do see in shoreline a lot of different projects. So obviously, whenever I can get in the water is good, whether that's seagrass projects or restoration work. All that is a lot of fun. Communication is a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I love the community engagement. That's my favorite part. Like, because Nick and I could, we could provide the solution. We could, help the aquaculture farmers and work with Nicolette. But it really comes down to the community engagement, saying like, hey, come out here. This is the story. This is how the habitat can be enhanced. So I love that engagement. So.
Great. And the next question is, have you already done work on seawalls, or were you just showing what could be done?
Oh, great question. Actually, that picture I showed is already getting permitted as we speak. That is a client, we actually have 2 clients who are on the intercoastal that are doing that specific design. So what I'm showing you is a real project that is actively getting made in our site in Fort Pierce, Florida, and that's getting put into the water. And for the work on seawalls, we've already showed that the oysters can grow. We could already show that we know how to apply them onto the seawalls. So we have, I would say, 4 to 5 additional homes we're doing. And then we now have 72 dock piling wraps we're doing over in Jupiter. And that is going to get closed. And then we are also doing additional work at resorts. So this is stuff we're already sending out. This is very much a real product.
Great.
So.
Yeah, and this project that we're talking about where we're utilizing those inserts, we're currently there's an Indian River Lagoon National Estuary project funded through NOAA's Transformational Habitat Grant at Walton Scrub with St. Lucie County, and we're going to do another pilot of that compared to natural recruitment in the area when we do that project, because one of the deliverables is 3/4 of an acre of oyster reef.
Which segues perfectly to the next question, which is there any kind of vision in an ideal world of how to get back to have the oysters, or how the oysters were when the Indians were here? So sort of pre, I guess, current growth in population.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that'll be a combination of getting large scale projects, right? So the larger the area we can work with, then you could introduce a larger critical mass of oysters. Then you can have your seagrasses implemented. Then you could have your stabilization to build more reefs. So I think the more we educate the public and educate your different counties, I certainly see that as the case. We already showed that with Nicolette, seeing shoreline and ourselves. The tech exists. We just need, some more support to point us where. So yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's the technical know-how to get it done is there. As an engineer, I have this conversation all the time with people like, how do you solve that problem? Well, the problem is easy. It's getting all the stakeholders aligned to make that happen. That's the most difficult aspect. But getting it back to those types of times, I think will be definitely a difficult work. and a combined solution that'll involve things like incorporating having a more publicly favorable opinion of living shorelines and that type of solution, as well as the regulatory side, making it easier for individuals to permit this type of solution. And then also on the regulatory harvest side. So something that pops up is FWC is hosting some workshops coming up, I think in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, about recreational oyster harvest in some areas and seeking comment. That'll be part of the solution as well, is sustainable fisheries if wild caught is allowed again. And that's so one thing I wanted to point out too, that I'll segue right into that and hijack it a bit, but something that a term that I've heard before and has resonated with me with regards to oyster aquaculture versus farmed oysters is when you're farming anything directly off the bottom, you're removing those oysters and taking them to market. Nothing gets put back. But when you purchase aquaculture oysters, such as what's grown at Treasure Coast Shellfish, for every oyster you purchase, you're buying at least 50 spat oysters.
Oh, you just got muted, Nick. You just said you left off at
Frozen up.
50.
Unfortunately, I think Nick got frozen.
Yeah,
My
I see you, Nick.
internet.
There you go. You're
Yeah,
back.
you
What the heck?
left
My
that
internet,
at
I don't
50.
know what, I'm having some issues today. But essentially, when you purchase oyster aquaculture grown oysters, for every one oyster you consume, you're putting 50 seed back onto that lease. That's going to provide water quality benefit. So it really is a great sustainable practice for water quality. And then the oysters look better as well. Those perfect cups, when you get wild caught oysters or wild harvested oysters, they're grown in the exact same water, so it doesn't matter. But they don't look as nice because they're grown in big clumps.
All right, we have a comment which I'm going to paraphrase because it's pretty long, but the idea is that oyster restoration that's done in non-spat limited places, so basically oyster recruitment occurs naturally. It's not necessary to introduce oysters or spat. It doesn't hurt, but it's not necessary. The cost is the biggest hurdle to attaining large-scale oyster restoration. The modules have a place in shoreline erosion protection, but maybe are not the solution for those massive historical loss of oyster reefs, restoring that. That was the comment. So I don't know if you want to respond to that or.
Yeah, sure. So there's 3 different reasons why people would buy this product. Sometimes the oyster restoration is just a symptom. So the reason why the dogpiling wraps make sense is because in some counties, they force a mitigation requirement, right? If you want to build a dock across your entire waterfront property, at a certain point, they'll force you to use riprap. Now it becomes extremely costly and they don't maximize their waterfront property. So by actually doing the dogpiling wraps, it allows them to maximize their waterfront property for the purposes of complying with mitigation. And the reason why it complies with mitigation is because it allows the oysters to grow. So that's a dual purpose function for that. That's why they have to pay for it anyways. So you might as well have them purchase one that grows oysters. So that's one. The second is some customers, governments and clients and engineering firms will purchase this for mitigation, let's say for FDOT, water management districts or otherwise. So including that option is a good way to let them continue. And the third is you still want to have a solution because the alternative is gabions, which doesn't really work because the steel will break. Your alternative is plastic, flex bags. Again, that doesn't really work. So at scale, it will work because the cost of materials is extremely low and we source everything locally. So it definitely, cost will always be high in the beginning. I mean, $300 a dock piling is not a stretch for some of these clients. So we want to make sure that we are double dipping on both, creating a highly scalable solution, but also making sure that oyster restoration happens, whether or not it's the primary focus or a symptom. That's how we're able to support.
Great. And the next question are the arches fixed to the bottom, or does their weight hold them down? Are they designed to remain in place during storms and hurricanes?
Yeah, that's a great question, Greg. Yeah, we have that question a lot about, will this become a projectile going through someone's living room? We don't want that. So here we actually had Hurricane Milton go through and they didn't move. We had Tropical Storm Debbie go through and they didn't move. Because each unit is 1,200 pounds, we actually connect them together like Legos. So that whole section is about 15 units long. It's about 75 feet and it weighs 15,000 pounds. So there's no physical anchor system that's driving into the ground. It's both the weight, the connection, the fact that sediment will accrete behind, locking the actual arches in, and eventually the mangrove roots taking place. So we work with some of the largest engineers, restoration groups like Sea and Shoreline to make sure that stays in place.
Yeah, it's generally a question of mass, how heavy the unit is based on the wave climate, and that's kind of the driver as to whether they stay put or not. But
Well, I was just in a meeting recently, and one of the speakers made the comment that the issues of water quality are so wicked right now that we can only solve them through interdisciplinary collaborations and partnerships. And I think this project is a fantastic example of exactly that. Maybe innovative thinking outside of the box, getting different private partnerships together to find innovative solutions to some of our serious challenges in the Indian River Lagoon. So I want to thank you both for joining us and for sharing this project with us and for a really dynamic question and answer session. So thank you all. And I don't know, Vincent, you have anything else?
Yeah, no. Well, there's a comment here. Heather, this is a great comment. Death by 1,000 cuts and healing by 1,000 sutures. I could add Band-Aids to that as well. The one thing I just wanted, this idea that you got having aquaculture be engaged in restoration in this way is potential as a potential revenue stream for aquaculture. So just that, we're following other places, but just so that people know that in places like the Chesapeake Bay, oyster farmers are getting awarded for the ecosystem services they provide, and it's been a long road to get from the practice into policy, but it does point a way towards the future, and those farmers are starting to get checks cut to them specifically for just doing what they're doing, and hopefully we can follow suit in Florida at some point in time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And I almost
that's
forgot
true.
our evaluation. So before you hop off, please just complete those 4 quick questions. And I believe I cut you off, Nick, so apologies for that.
Oh, no, I was echoing what Vincent was saying, that, yeah, that is the case in other areas because they recognize the ecosystem services and supporting supporting those services by funding the oyster aquaculture farmers for their nutrient removal and water quality enhancement. So if anyone's interested in doing that, we can hook you up with Nicolette and make that happen. Go directly to her. It's part of a lagoon management plan.
I put in Treasure Coast Shellfish, so feel free to definitely give her some love on Instagram.
Yeah, but just as consumers, we can all make an impact as well.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us and for giving the presentation today to the Water Ambassadors. And we look forward to seeing you all at our next May webinar. And hopefully you'll be out on the water sometime in May and can help get some seagrass reportings in as well as part of the Eyes on Seagrass Blitz. So thank you all for joining us. And thank you, Nick and Nick, for your great presentation.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
You got it.
Thanks
Thank
everybody
you.
for tuning in.